Hello and welcome to episode 9 of New Media Tech. I'm Mike Myers. I'm your host for this show. And it's been a couple weeks since I've actually had to record one of these. I recorded a couple of them ahead of time because I was going to be out of town. And it's the last couple that were released. But now I'm back in the studio. And we have a lot of interesting things that have happened in the last couple weeks since I recorded one of these. One of them, the biggest thing, probably for us, is our Roku app was released finally. It took us about a month and a half to get it approved. They're just very busy with all kinds of new channels that are being out there, so their QA process just took for a long time. It's been out for a little over a week, and we've already had 5,229 downloads of the app, and it is definitely making a difference in our view count for our shows. It's pretty amazing, actually. So we'll probably talk about the Roku option for your shows or whatever you're doing in a future episode, but our Roku app is out. We have pretty much completed the iPad app as well, and we're just testing it right now. And we're going to then go to iPhone and do an Android app at the same time, and then go over to Google TV, and we're going to think about doing a Boxy app, although I don't know what the number of people what could that do for us. I don't know what how kind of coverage they have. I think Roku is really growing fast as far as a desktop or a TV top type box. So that's still something that's on our list as a possibility. But Roku has made a big difference. I mean, it's pretty amazing actually. We typically, most of our shows get between 5,000 and 12,000 views on YouTube and about the same number of downloads a week. And the Roku is like not quite double that, but pretty close to double it. It seems like. Now that could just be because people are just getting the channel now and watching all the shows, and that may slow down after we get that deployed, or it gets deployed out there a little wise. So, and a couple of new shows coming on too. At least 3 new shows that are going to come up. One of them is called The Program, and it's all about programming, and we're going to start out with very basic concept of programming, and then spend like 3 months or so on each language and go through different languages. And I'm going to try to find some other hosts that are better at some of the languages than what I am, and to do some of those as well. The first one or two I'll probably do on my own, but I'd love to find other hosts for that. And that's what we call a bulk load show, is we'll record, maybe all 12 weeks of it in like 2 days time, and just release that over a period of time. So, but we do have a couple other shows we're working on that are more live as well, and should be coming online very soon. And we have one show, the Security Coded show, that we are reworking to change the format around a little bit. Still going to be a news type show, but it's going to do more than news. It's all it's been before, is just talk about the security events that happened over the past week, and we want to expand that into showing people how to do and use tools for security, reverse engineering, things like that. So that's a little bit going on there. So also, since our last show, I've had some questions, and these have been building up, so I'm going to answer some of these questions tonight. And I mentioned before that we are going to start with a decision tree, and I'm going to kind of start that a little bit tonight and explain that, and explain where it's coming from as well. And then I'll talk about what's coming up in the next couple of weeks as well. So it won't be a really long night tonight, but it'll give you a little bit of a start back into the new media stuff. So as I mentioned, we have other shows coming up, so that are going to cover a bunch of different areas. And one of the questions I got while I was gone was a little about my background. And I've been a computer, I don't call myself a geek, but I've been a computer geek since I was really young. I actually had my first programming job when I was still a junior in high school, a paid programming job as a professional, writing some assembler and some, back then it was Quick Basic. That was back in '85, so I'm dating myself. And when I graduated high school in '87, I pretty much went right to work and been writing source code and stuff. Well, I still do that now. So, but throughout that time, I have taken a bunch of other hobbies that turned into businesses for me. Some that I've sold. I started an ISP in the mid '90s and sold it in 2000, and made a really nice profit on that. But that's where I got my networking background and some security background. So I've worked for a couple of big carriers and large hotel companies as well. And but throughout that, I started doing some video production, and that was like probably about the 2005, 2006 time range. And I started doing all kinds of commercials. Actually, I like doing short story type things. They're my favorite probably. But because of that, I started getting involved more in setting up studios for people and things like that. So I think I mentioned this before. This studio is actually not TechZen TV Studio. It's actually a studio that is owned by another company that I own called Crazy Eye Studio, and I'm actually in a sound room. It's all padded except for the stuff behind me right here, which behind that it is padded. We take it down when we do recording and stuff like that. So we are a working studio, and we just use the same space on free time to do shows like this. So that is our background. That is what we do. We are a studio. We do. In fact, we just finished doing audio for an upcoming documentary. We just finished that audio last week, and it was all done in this very same room actually that I'm in right now. And I have other areas that we can go do video shoots with and stuff as well in this area. And we do all kinds of video or audio production, either one. And we consult a lot with like private studio type things, or what's happening recently is people want to do their own video production, which is great. There's plenty of work to go around, and if I can help somebody else learn that, that's great. And what we do is we consult with them on the equipment they're buying. And that started happening with one of our customers here locally, wanted to do podcasting, which kind of got me learning about the netcasting stuff and just how I got into this part of it. So when I talk about the studio stuff, I'm looking at it from a point of view of being a professional studio, not necessarily somebody starting out in their home. However, on the other side of that, I also for 5 years was a internet marketing person. That's where I made most of my money from, was internet marketing. I don't do that anymore. It's too scammy. But some of the concepts you learn about marketing work well in this, in social media and stuff like that. So tying all this together is kind of where I got this show. And I have some people that wanted to learn how to do this from scratch. So I know here we have the nice microphones and the nice cameras and all the stuff that we use for our normal production, but not everybody has that. So my goal was to create a show that would start from scratch. Say you have a subject that you're passionate about, and some people start out being like a fan cast, some show you like and some friends like, and you get together and talk about it, and you put out there as a podcast, and that's great. That's how you get started, but you don't want to spend much money, and that's where I want to walk through starting out from nothing, because I don't want to assume that you have a budget coming in. So the companies that I work with have a budget. They come to me and they say, hey, we have this much to spend. We want to do this. We want to broadcast live. We want to be able to take the cameras out and do live shoots, do interviews. And we basically ask them all these questions. And I'm taking those same questions, taking them to a lower level, and then I'm going to put the decision tree in, like where you start. So what's the first thing you should do if you want to do audio only podcast, which is probably where I recommend you start, because it's been said that if you're going to make it podcasting, you make it past the 10th episode, you're going to keep doing it. So many people give up after that. They realize how much work is involved in doing a podcast every week, and it's a ton of work. It's the amount of prep work you do. Like the one show that I just finished recording before I did this one, Let's Make It. I mean, I sit there and I have to write programs. I have to get all the electronics to work. I got to figure out how it works if I don't know how it works, which most of the time I don't. I have to go figure it out, and that's the fun part for me. It's like a hobby. So it's a fun thing to do. I love doing it, and that's why I do it. I don't do it for the money. I'm not making hardly any money with podcasting like this. That would be nice to do that ultimately, but this is also a way I can show potential customers or future customers or current customers the potential that you have with podcasting. And so many of the people that have been working with studio stuff already have all the stuff to do this, except for maybe some way to get it on to the stream. They already record it, so it just comes down to the process. And I kind of want to do this show in a couple of different things. So one of the questions I got was, why another show? Well, there's plenty of room for a bunch of shows. And I will tell you that this community of podcasters is a great community to be in, for the most part. There's other great shows. In fact, I'm going to tell you some shows that if you're interested in keeping and learning and podcasting and network broadcasting, so like that, I'm going to give you some other shows you should probably watch, because you should watch and learn as much as you absolutely can. And from the ones that I've met that do those type of shows, they're nice people. So it's all good. It's not kind of competition. And we're all trying to do something similar, but we're all different. I mean, I'm looking at it from a different point of view, where one show that I'm going to recommend is pretty high-end studio. It kind of fits to me the concept that I do, because I deal with people like that all the time, where they're going out and they're spending $30,000 on a switcher, or they don't mind spending $5,000 on a HDMI or SDI router, things like that. And I know I'm putting on acronyms now, and don't worry, I'm going to start from very simple, because if you're starting out in your home, you more likely just want to start with audio, and if you can make it past 10 and it's very interesting to you, it's something you want to continue to do, then you go to the next step. And that's part of the decision tree that we're putting together. Is first thing you need is a decent headset of some kind. First thing is, well, very first thing, and this first thing we do when we go in to talk to somebody in the decision tree is, do you want audio or video? And there's pros and cons to both. I actually prefer myself video with an audio release. So if you want to watch, you can download and watch it, but if you only want to listen to it, you're welcome to do that. Now, some of my shows are very visual. Like the Let's Make It show would make no sense being an audio-only show, because you can't see the source code I'm talking about, you can't see how I wired something up, you can't see what the device is doing that I'm playing with. But there are other shows that I do that make perfect sense as an audio-only show, but some people just like to be able to watch it, or like, a lot of times I will download the video. I do everything in video, and I'll put the iPad on, and it's still playing next to me, and I don't watch it because I'm working on something else, and I'm listening to it, but occasionally I look over, and, it's just one of those things, I don't know. It just seems more natural to me to download video. I do listen to things in the car. I do listen to things in the car, but I sometimes listen on Stitcher, which is something audio only. Our shows are all on Stitcher. It's a great way to get some audio content. But lots of times I'll have my iPad right next to me on the seat plugged into the jack, and I'm listening to the video podcast in my car. So I'm also a big audiobook person, so I listen to a lot of audiobook. But so you have to decide, do I want to start with video? Because if you do, I'm going to tell you that right up front, the cost to start out with video is a little bit more. It's a little less. If you own a Mac, you can probably, in a recent Mac, you probably can do it for very little cost with what you have right now. Because it comes with iMovie and the ability to do some podcasting type stuff right inside the Mac. And if you have a camera built in, you can use that camera. It's an okay start. The one thing you probably need to get is a headset or a cheap USB mic of some kind, because using the mic that's built into the laptop or the computer just isn't going to cut it. That's one of the first things that you need to do, is get your audio good. And that's definitely the first thing that we have in our decision tree after deciding if you want to do audio or video as your primary. And if you don't have the ability to do video, I typically recommend you start out with just audio, because it's cheap. You get to feel, you get to learn, kind of weed your way through. And as you go through and you go forward, we'll give you like, what's the next thing I recommend you spend money on, or give you one of these next two things. Should be one of the next things you get. And we're going to walk through the decision tree. Every week we're going to walk through a little bit more and help you decide where to go next. And I'm going to document all this as well, and it'll all be on the website. In fact, I'm even thinking about putting together like a little free course you could just download and watch all the stuff together in a row. I may still do that. But basically, we're going to separate out to audio and a video track. If you're going on the audio track, we're going to give you the next steps to go look for. So maybe you get a $30 headset, and your next thing you want to do is you're using the free software. Some of the free software is decent, but some of the encoding the free software does is not so good. And we'll maybe recommend something you go to next software-wise that's still inexpensive, but the next thing you would spend money on. And then the next thing you do is like maybe go to a better mic, or we start explaining all the stuff, the pros and cons to both. And eventually you get to the point where you're doing audio and you want to go to video, so we're going to recommend where you start with video. And then when you get in the video, you got switching software, so you get a lot more or hardware software. We'll talk about that too, and which what the advantages to both of those are. And that's our goal coming up with this the decision tree. So I'm working on the decision tree, and it's actually the audio tracks. I think it's pretty much done. I'm working on the video track right now, and hopefully that's done in the next week or so, and we'll start kicking out this as a regular segment of the show. Actually, I'm going to separate this show into different segments, and maybe you can throw some news and stuff in there as well. Okay, so I you a little bit about the background. That's the question I had with somebody, and also why another show. And I'm not really trying to compete with the other shows with this one. I just think it's a different perspective. The other shows, actually, I'm going to recommend 2 shows before the end here, are great shows. In fact, I totally recommend that you go and you watch them, because the more you watch, the more you learn. And we're all going to take different perspectives, different sides of it. The one show is, like I said, very studio-based, high-end, what I consider high-end studio, things that the typical home person wouldn't want, but it's a good learning experience. You get to figure out what's out there. The other show uses a software switcher. I use a hardware switcher, so I'm going to give you a different perspective on switching. I'm actually learning a lot from them on software, and they're very great and gracious to help and answer questions like that. So it's been great. It's a great community to get involved in. So I gave you a different perspective. I come from a background of higher end video cameras and stuff like that, but I'm myself. I mean, we have decent cameras here, but I'm not like doing it as a full-time production. I'm doing it, in our other studio. So I come from this a little different perspective than other people. So and it's all good. So it's all great to learn from different people, different perspectives, and what you want to do. And I'm trying to take and start from the low end and show you going up to get to the point where eventually we'll get to the point where you actually have a studio, like we have here, and that's what you do, all the time. So again, it's just a different. It's another show, yes, about podcasting. I'm gonna call it. I don't want to call it podcasting. Podcasting is just part of it, but it's the new media broadcasting, or netcasting. We call it netcasting. And I don't like using the word podcasting just because podcasting is only a small part of the whole new media segment. Podcasting does not include netcasting, like live netcasting, which I like to do. So I just don't like limiting it down to the word podcasting, although podcasting is part of it. So, and actually, if you look at I should look up the definition of podcasting before I got in the show. But basically, podcasting is something episodic release of content or something like that. I've read it before. So, all right. So here's a couple things we're going to talk about coming up. Like I said, this show is going to be kind of short. I'm going to talk about microphone types and patterns, and then I'm going to bring all the different microphones. So we have a bunch of different kinds here, and I'm going to show them to you. And I'm actually going to show you some USB ones as well, and show you the difference, so you can hear the difference in different types of microphones. And then we're also going to talk about how and where to distribute your media, different places you can put it for distribution. That's a couple other things that have changed since our last show here. We actually are on 4 networks now. We stream live on Ustream like we did before, but also now on Justin TV. We're on Vaughn TV, and I can't remember the other one we're on. It's a new one we just did. So we're going to talk about the different ways of doing that, tracking the performance of your show, how you see the live viewers compared to the downloads, things like that. And actually, by hopefully next week, I have something I can probably show that came out of the Let's Make It show, where we actually have built an on-air or live light that monitors your streams and tells you if your stream is up or down, and also measures your streams for the ones that allow you to measure it. Not all those CDNs that I mentioned do allow you to do that. At least I can't figure out how they allow you to do it. But the light comes on whenever your stream is up, and it's constantly reading, once a minute, reading the number of viewers and storing it, and gives you a nice little graph. So we'll talk about that next week. That's pretty much done right now. Working on the light part of it right now. The software part's done, working good. We'll talk about some different ways of making money. The shows I'm doing right now, hasn't been my focus, although it probably should be, and I think I may make it some more my focus, because I'm using my shows kind of like advertising. I can go into customers and say, here's what we can do for you, and send them to my shows, and they can see what we do, and they can see how it maybe fits into their company. And I will tell you that my biggest customer that does this type of stuff here locally, and I can't give you your name, I should probably ask them if I can. I never asked them, so I don't want to give it out. But just with people that are baby boomer age or a little bit older. So they do regular videos and podcasting and things like that as well. And they're starting to get into, they're talking about now building like an interactive studio where people could call in and ask questions and all that. And it's actually not going to be here, it's going to be another office, but I would probably be the one that would go out and install it for them and train them as well. So these shows give me something to go to a customer with, or a potential customer who's asking questions that's found Crazy Eye Studio and said, hey, we want to do this. Give me a little bit of something to use to promote with that with. It just gives a little bit of background. So I do have one sponsor, and through the end of May on 2 of my shows, and I guess it's working out okay. It's something I haven't done before necessarily, and I'm not the salesperson, so I'm the technical person, and I don't really have somebody go out and sell that. Typically people come to me, so it's a little different for me to go out soliciting for sponsors or something like that. So that's something I'm going to talk about. That's something that's been hard for me, and I'm actually learning from other people right now about that, because in the internet marketing side of things, I was like, nobody knew who I was. It was all about search engine placement and people buying things and stuff like that. So that's how I did sales. So people always say, well, you sold a lot of stuff, made a lot of money on internet marketing. Well, I never talk to people. I don't have a problem talking to people. I love talking to people and interacting, but going to somebody and asking them to sponsor is a whole different thing. It's like a sales mentality that I don't have. So that's something for me. I'm learning. Actually, I'm listening to a book right now. It's called Self-Promotion for Introverts, and it's actually a pretty decent book. And it's my first start into that. As far as public speaking goes, like that, no problem. I do that kind of stuff all the time. And I have no problem going on a sales call and presenting stuff. It's just doing the cold calling or calling up somebody, say, hey, do you want to sponsor a show? Would be, to me, like cold calling. So just not so good at that. We're going to talk about some remote guest solutions. And actually, I'm playing with a new one right now called Viber. It's viber.com, and it's like a Skype competitor. And hopefully in the next couple weeks I have some results from that. So I'm just now starting to experiment with that. So far it seems like it's okay, but it's only been like in studio, in the local area, friends of mine that are local testing with me. We'll talk about some hardware versus software switching. I'm actually using hardware switching here, but I'm getting ready to do a hybrid with the help of some people from one of the other shows that I mentioned here in a little bit. And I'll put the links, all that stuff for this. But I'm basically going to go to a hybrid where I do hardware switching for the cameras, but in between the switcher and the recorder and the streams and all that, I'm going to stick in a software switcher to do my lower thirds. Because the hardware switcher I use, although it's a great switcher, I use a Blackmagic Design ATEM, does not do graphics very well or any kind of media very well. In fact, it does it very poorly. From what I can say, it does it very poorly. So I'm going to use Wirecast as an intermediate, and I've already started working on some code that will allow me to control them together. So when I go to a particular camera, if I want to go to it with a lower third for the person who's on that camera, it'll do it all with one button, pretty much. So I'm working on all that stuff right now. And I'll talk about that more in the future when I get that stuff working out. We'll talk about some wireless video solutions. I hope to have some of that here soon, about some of the ways you can do wireless video from your camera to switcher. That's coming out. There's some actually really cool stuff that's out now. We're going to go through like the audio only workflow or the video workflow as well through some of these. We'll talk about room acoustics. I'm in a room, like you can't probably tell that I have a door open, but I'm in a room that's completely surrounded in foam. It's almost the point where it's too dead, with the exception of the floor, which is a wood floor. And we did that just for acoustics of bass amps or guitar amps, things like that we record in here. So that's why the resonance is fairly decent in this room, because it is a wood floor. Talk about some lighting, just the basics of lighting, I think, more than anything. 3-point lighting, how it all works. Maybe get through some DMX control. We use all this stuff here, and it can demonstrate it, but most people probably wouldn't have a need for that. I mean, we're using soft boxes and things like that in the studio, because that's what we do every day. Talk about some green screen, lighting the green screen, how we did it fairly inexpensively. Talk about some tools that keep you organized, some free tools, things like Google Docs, and how you can use them to communicate with other people and stuff like that as well. We have a whole social automation system set up so that when we release a show, it's all this stuff happens automatically. And we'll talk about the whole workflow and workflow automation. And one of the other things we'll probably talk about is how you can use inexpensive people like an outsourcer. We actually have 2 of them now that we use we actually hire them through Odesk, and the one's been with me for years, so it's somebody that I definitely trust. But I got a new one to do some of the more mundane website type changes that I do. So we'll talk about some of that automation and outsourcing stuff as well. And this is going to be a good year for podcasting, and I want to say, I keep saying podcasting, but it's the new media in general, because right now it says, I just read a statistic somewhere, 3% of marketers are using podcasting, but 28% plan to do something this year with it. And they actually called out the word podcasting. I think new media is probably a more accurate word because I was looking at social media and integration and stuff like that, which to me is new media. So that is pretty much it for this show. Like I said, we're going to start doing some regular segments. I had the segments starting to build up. I just wanted to get a show on the books because I haven't done one in a couple weeks and I've been out, and lots of things have been changing around here. We'll talk a little bit about some of the things that are going on, like behind me, this brick wall that's here. That's actually a removable brick wall. It's actually very easily removable. And some of the new set designs we're doing in the other rooms. And I may even try to set up a competition for a set design in one of the other rooms. I have a blank wall that I can use for another set, and I just don't know what to do with it. And I may do a little bit of a contest of some kind to do that. I'm going to figure out what I'm going to give away and all that stuff as well. So that is pretty much it this week. And I'd love to get feedback on, well, I do want to talk about two other things. That's not it. Sorry. Just moving along a little bit fast. I would love to get feedback on what you would like to learn or know about, or any kind of questions you have. And I've gotten questions since our last show. That's where some of these came from. And that's great. I love the feedback. That definitely is helpful. That way we give to you what you want from us. So it's the best way for me to know what you want. So I mentioned about 2 other shows, and I definitely want to recommend these shows that if you're serious in learning this stuff, that you go and you watch them. And one of them is called Studio Tech Live, and if you go to ttfn.tv, you'll see a link there for Studio Tech. They do a live show every Tuesday, but it's best just to subscribe to them and download the podcast every week. If you can watch them live, get in the chat room, you can actually interact with them. They're very great. They're great to interact with. They aren't like a super huge netcasting company where there's hundreds and thousands of people in the chat room and talking about stuff that doesn't relate. It's very topic oriented. So, and the other one is from the Tech Buzz, and they do a show called Broadcast Now, and that's another great one to go. And it's also shot on or live on Tuesdays. And if you can't watch it on Tuesdays, you can definitely sign up for that one as well. They both cover totally different sides of the spectrum. Studio Tech is very what I consider high-end studio. They're talking about switchers that are $10,000 and up. Typically, they are showing you how the new stuff that's coming out, the wireless video stuff that's like $1,800 for the transmitter and receiver, which is like the that I was just talking about a little bit ago, or the VDUs that are wireless streaming devices, things that work. You can put in your camera and stream, like $900. So you're talking that range. It's more of the high-end type of gear, but they're great, and you learn a lot from watching them, even if you don't have a budget for that kind of gear. The Broadcast Now is using software switching, and you learn how you can do things inexpensively, but still good quality, and it's another good show to watch. And I'm kind of trying to fit in the middle of that a little bit, but I want to start people that don't know where to start and get them up to the level, and eventually you get to the point where you are maybe a video studio using a software switcher, then you get to the hardware switcher, you go up to the Studio Tech thing. So basically I'm trying to train people to get from point A to point B. And I am going to cover some news, but those guys cover a lot of the news, and I'm not going to focus on that. I'd rather not. I don't want to compete with them at all. I mean, they're great people, and they do great shows, and I think it's good to watch them all. So I'm just trying to fill in a little bit of a niche in between there. I will talk about some products that may be covered on the other shows as well, and show how I use them. Like I just got a new Blackmagic Design mini recorder, and I'm actually going to use it as part of this whole Wirecast setup in the middle. As part of the middle, being in the middle between this hardware switcher and the recorder. So I'll talk about how I'm using that. I'll show you what it does, and I'll tell you some SDI stuff. Converting things to different formats. I'll go through all the basic stuff like that too. But I won't cover like the new product news as much probably as what the other people will. So again, go check them out, ttfn.tv, and it's thetechbuzz.net, I think, is the other one, and that's Broadcast Now. And Studio Tech Live is the TTFN one. So yeah, go check them both out. So if you're watching us on YouTube, give us a little thumbs up at the bottom, go check mark, click the subscribe button so you can notify when we get a new show come out. I mentioned before, you can now watch us on the Roku, We've been on the Xbox through the Microsoft software. I don't know. I think we're still there. I haven't looked recently, but we were there. Any of the mobile devices like that, any kind of podcasting, including we even go back as far as the Zune. The ancient Zunes were actually listed on the ancient Zune. So just because we're on Microsoft's platform for the Windows Phone 8 stuff, we end up on the Zune as well. So that's all good. But if you're listening to us like on a podcast or something like that, subscribe. And if you could leave us a comment and a rating, that'd be great. Well, we'd love to get the comment and rating for you. That definitely helps us get found a little quicker and grow the community. And this is only episode 8 of this show, so we're in the very, very early stages of the show. And I've been working hard trying to get the decision trees done, and probably going to do some side videos. I may just actually record some of that stuff separately and just throw them in as a segment into this show as well. But we love having you to watch, and like I said, go check out some of our friends at the other shows too. They're great, and tell your friends about us, and spread the word around. Definitely appreciate it. We'll see you all next week.